Have you ever heard about mass illness? Well, this term refers to the rapid spread of illness signs and symptoms which affects members of a cohesive group. These illnesses usually originate from nervous system disturbance, which involves excitation, loss, or alteration of function, and some patients have experienced physical complaints as well. It takes place in the context of a credible threat that causes significant anxiety, such as a noxious odor in a school amid fears of chemical warfare or bioterrorism. Most physicians, through different pieces of training, are educated and very well aware of individual cases of hysteria, but they do not have sufficient knowledge about epidemic hysteria. In one case, 800 children in Jordan believed they had suffered side effects from a tetanus diphtheria toxoid vaccine administered at school. 122 of the children were admitted to the hospital. For the vast majority, symptoms were caused by psychogenic illness rather than the vaccine. The significance of such events is underestimated and underreported. They impose significant financial burdens on emergency services, public health, and environmental agencies, as well as the affected building or occupation site, which is frequently shut down for days or weeks. In this video, we will look at the 7 mass illnesses that caused a lot of pressure on the world when they were spread. Without wasting any time, let's dive into the details. 1. The Dancing Plague. In 1518, hundreds of citizens of Strasbourg started to dance uncontrollably and apparently unwillingly for a couple of days. This panic situation continued for 2 months and ended as mysteriously as it started. The case was seen when in July 1518, a woman named Frau Troffa stepped into a street and began to dance and continued dancing until she collapsed from exhaustion. She resumed her compulsive, frenzied activity after resting. She went on like this for days, and within a week, more than 30 other people were affected in the same way. They kept going long after they were injured. The ever-increasing number of dances alarmed city officials. Different religious and civic leaders stated that more dancing is the solution, so they arranged for professional dancers to accompany them and eventually ended up getting 400 victims of this dancing compulsion. Explanation: demonic possession and overheated blood were 2 modern explanations for the dancing plague. Researchers in the 20th century speculated that the afflicted may have consumed bread contaminated with fungal disease ergo, which is known to cause convulsions. Different versions of the dancing plague spread to Germany, Holland, and Switzerland. 2. The Salem Witch Trials. Between 1692 and 1693, over 200 people were wrongfully convicted of practicing witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts, and 20 were executed. Years later, the colony admitted that the trials were unfair and compensated the victims' families. However, the state did not formally apologize for the events until 1957. So what were the events that led up to the trials? The beginning of these trials started in Europe when there was a craze for witchcraft. In 1689, Salem village was ever occupied with refugees that left France due to the war. There was also a lot of animosity between the 2 biggest families in Salem village at the time. The trouble between the families started when Putnam's brought in a new pastor from Boston. Soon after his arrival, several young girls, including his daughter and niece, began acting strangely, with fits, screaming, throwing things, and complaining about being pinched by invisible forces. Unable to determine the cause of the fits, a local doctor declared that they were cursed. The sick girls then blamed their illness on 3 women: Tituba, Paris's Caribbean slave, Sarah Good, a destitute woman, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly impoverished woman. The 3 women were put on trial, and Tituba pleaded guilty and confessed that the devil came to me and bid me serve him. The other 2 women insisted on their innocence. The 3 women were all arrested. Later, the first woman, named Gallows Hill, was hanged for what she has done, but was proved innocent 12 years later. Hundreds were accused, and 20 were hanged in upcoming months. 3. The Writing Tremor Epidemic. In Gross Tints, a 10-year-old girl's right hand started trembling when she tried to write anything, which then progressed to full-body seizures that spread to 19 other students. A similar epidemic struck 20 people in Basel, Switzerland, when female students at a girls' school were unable to complete in-school written assignments due to contagious shaking and convulsions. Symptoms subsided after school hours, relapsing only when the students returned to the school grounds. The only reason so far for this epidemic was explained by Dr. Bartholomew, who said the late 19th century European writing tremor was a direct result of a new teaching method that viewed the mind as a muscle that needed to be exercised. This was an unconscious attempt to avoid the dreaded writing classes. 4. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. In the mid-1940s, this term was given to people who were believed to be responsible for a series of apparent gas attacks that occurred in Mattoon, Illinois. Over the span of 2 weeks, more than 24 cases were reported. The alleged victims of the gasser reported smelling strange odors in their home, which were quickly followed by symptoms such as leg paralysis, coughing, nausea, and vomiting. There were no fatalities or serious medical consequences. However, the good news is that no victim suffered from long-term effects. Instead, all recovered quickly. 5. The June bug epidemic. This mysterious disease erupted in a dressmaking department of a U.S. textile factory in 1962. Numbness, nausea, dizziness, and vomiting were among the symptoms. The news of a bug in the factory that bit its victims and caused them to develop the symptoms listed above spread quickly. In no time, 62 employees had this illness. Researchers said that it was a case of mass hysteria, and later no evidence was found of a bug in the factory. When interviewed, workers concluded that the environment was quite stressful. The plant had just opened, was very busy, and organization was lacking. 6. The Tanganyika laughing epidemic. The laughter epidemic was an outbreak that happened in 1962. It occurred in or near the village of Kashasha in Tanganyika. In Kashasha, a mission-run boarding school for girls began with 3 girls and quickly spread throughout the school, affecting 95 of the 159 students aged 12 to 18. Symptoms ranged in duration from a few hours to 16 days. The teaching staff was unaffected, but students were unable to focus on their lessons. On March 18, the school closed its doors. The phenomenon, however, ended 18 months after it began. The reports on the effects of laughter were frequently accompanied by descriptions of pain, fainting, respiratory issues, rashes, and crying. While talking about what caused this issue, linguist Christian F. Hempelman theorized that the episode of this laughter epidemic was stress-induced. 7. Monkey men. In May 2001, reports from New Delhi started to circulate when citizens complained of seeing a strange monkey-like creature, also known as Kala Bandar, that was appearing at night and attacking people. The monkey-like creature was described by eyewitnesses as being about 4 feet tall, or 120 centimeters tall, covered in thick black hair with a metal helmet, metal claws, glowing red eyes, and 3 buttons on its chest. According to some reports, the monkey man also wore roller skates. Over 350 people cited the creature, and there was a total of 60 people who were injured because of it. 2 even died because of the fear of the creature, falling from the roof and from the stairs. Exasperated cops even issued artists' impression drawings in an attempt to apprehend the creature. There have been several dramas and films created about the monkey man. One of the most famous ones is New Delhi, and one of the movies interpreted the creature as a misunderstood superhero, the result of a botched science experiment. End. So that's all for this video. From this, we can conclude that mass hysteria can cause a lot of problems and pressure in society if preventative and awareness measures are not taken immediately. Which of the above-mentioned mass hysteria was most surprising for you? Tell us in the comment section below. Also, if you still have not subscribed to the channel, then please do and hit the bell icon so you do not miss any updates.